This video features two cooperative decks that are trying to get the character R3PO to shine. He's a droid who serves in an anti-spy role. He was designed, as far as I know, to counteract U3PO, who was a undercover spy for the dark side that came out in A New Hope. R3PO came out in Hoth, and he was made to make the dark side lose force if they have undercover spies, well, spies, undercover cards, or both. If they're spy droids, they lose even extra force. So the idea here is to try to get R3PO to have the most possible force loss to the dark side. That's mostly going to be done with a certain dark side droid, as well as a bunch of light side droids that get stolen. That's what the Jawa ion guns are for. But first, we need to get some activation going. And you need a gambler in order to play Sabax. That's why Figure Dan's coming out. Now, one of the ways I could have added even more to I'm going to just say this in advance. One of the ways I could have added even more to the total is having Bothan spies get lost in Sabak. But I just wanted to keep it droid oriented this time. So yeah, right now it's just about lots of activation. Making sure the dark side has plenty to work with too. There's not going to be a whole lot of variety in the dark side cards, but you might as well get out this guy because his text, whenever the light side draws a card, 1 to 3, they can activate 1 force. 0 to 7, they can retrieve 1 force. 4 to 6, that's the idea here. Draw the top card of reserve deck. And I'm playing Senate because of the flip side. If dark side got into a pickle and they drew up too many cards they didn't have, and the ones they still needed were in the force pile, I could have them send cards back to the used pile with this, so it prevents the dark side from getting in a jam if they get really unlucky and all the cards they needed were at the bottom. So because the light side is doing its wager, I said Sabak, he's actually just doing a wager with Figure Dan's text. Light side draws 3 destiny, dark side can respond to all those by activating a force or drawing a card in hand from reserve deck. I don't think I have any 0s or 7s. Well, you know what? There are some sites in there, but the goal is to get those sites out as fast as possible to give both sides more activation, time to figure out what to do. And sorry about the mess is going to be a key card. It would have been way too tedious to try to get a bunch of Bothan spies over to the dark side, but R3PO does work against them. So 1 force just for a spy being there. If the spy is a droid, they gotta just lose 2 force, or if the spy is undercover, they gotta lose 4 force. So it's actually not terribly efficient to make Bothan spies go undercover in this, because you have to have 2 Bothan spies with 2 undercovers to make the opponent lose 4 force. And as far as I know, there's no way to get the card undercover over to the dark side, but if it's a non-droid undercover spy, you might as well just send a spy anyways, since it's got to take 2 cards. Whereas with the dark side, if they get spies that are undercover, that's going to be 4 force loss. So we'll keep doing this here. If the dark side needs to lose cards for some reason, the light side could intentionally lose the wager just by drawing the whole deck. But Erica's key here because she's an undercover spy who's also a warrior and an Imperial. So she's an Imperial, undercover spy, warrior. All of those matter. I could have used a non-undercover Imperial, but that would have meant less force loss for our 3PO. And Trevorhorn's going to sell interrupts now. So he's going to send over sorry about the mess to the dark side. And the light side has all these spy droids that they can use and make them go undercover. And it gets a little bit confusing when all these undercover spies are out, because when you're undercover, you go over to the opponent's side and it looks like you're one of them. Getting lots of sorry about the messes. We want to send those over to the dark side. And dark side has 39 cards in their hand right now. Okay, so now, since they have the cards they need, they got Tyrant out. Pro droids can't deploy unless there's a Star Destroyer, so I chose a cheap Star Destroyer to deploy. Every single one of these probe droids is eventually going to become undercover. But what I've done is I'm going to keep those undercovers in hand because I'm trying to get the ion gun and the ion guns and the sorry about the messes into hand so Erica can actually use them. All right, so now Treve is going to sell that interrupt. So now the dark side has access to some sniping ability with sorry about the mess. Because I what I put down, the light side's going to win this one. I'm sorry, the dark side's going to win this one. The light side's going to lose it on purpose. There goes an ion gun. So we're sending the dark side the cards they need. It would be interesting to do the math to see how many Bothan spies I could send over. It would take forever though, because I wouldn't have all these force helping interrupts, and I'd be basically using it'd be Jabba's palace back, which I could retrieve with Figrin D'An, because that's a lost interrupt. So you already need a Jabba's palace site out, because in order to make C-3PO or some random droid undercover, you need to use a gift. But yeah, that's one of those ones where sure you could do it, but it's not that fun. It's actually very tedious. There is a part of this that gets a little bit tedious, but I'll fast forward through that. Right now we're doing wagers, which I think is kind of fun. Especially cards like 5d6 RA7. Just responding to an opponent's destiny draw is kind of cool like that. And you see the optional responses thing flashing there because the light side could be adding one destiny to each of these. So the dark side, the nice thing about doing those wagers is that you get to see your destinies and figure out where things are. And I think I did an okay job of tracking where things went to. All right, so I'm fairly confident that here somewhere I'm going to get the cards I need. Yep. By the way, when I say I'm playing both decks right now, if you've seen these videos before, that's what I do with these is play both decks. Give the wager a try. So the question is, can we get out the needed cards? It's one of the problems of having such a big hand, 39 cards, is that, yeah, you can't do much with the activation, but the smaller your deck is, at least for me, the easier it was to manage and track and figure out where things went. So now I got an ion gun. Can play a couple probe droids while I have the force. There's a sorry about the mess. So now I know that's the bottom card, which is nice. Let's see if I can actually do something about that. And we're throwing cards back. So with 37 cards in hand, I think one of them at this point was a sorry about the mess. And most of them are probe droids or undercover. So unfortunately, Sabak didn't work that time, but I thought there was one more ion gun in there to get, but they're all in my hand actually. Okay, so we're still setting up. There's lots more probe droids to get out, but I got other droids too. We're gonna have to eventually move Mara over. There we go. She's gonna try to sorry about the mess. That Chopper. Got him. So Chopper is stolen, and he's now an undercover spy for the dark side, even though he's still on that side. I guess he kind of should have flipped over to here, but when you steal undercover spies, that doesn't quite work out. I double checked when I clicked on him in the game. You can check what their status is, and it said owner was the dark side. So it's kind of an odd thing there that he doesn't switch. So light side still dumping cards back with the flip side of the politics objective. So that's going to get dark side more cards out of their hand. And every turn they're deploying probe droids. So all that's really left is undercovers. Dark side's drawing cards, and I think I remembered which cards went where, so I was able to get the proper ones. Keep undercovers in the deck and get Jawa ion, or well, Jawa ion guns can stay in the deck, but I want to get sorry about the messes out of the deck. We finally got C3PO in hand. He's going to eventually need to get stolen. All right, can we get a different droid this time? Going for R2-D2. It's actually targeting his forfeit. I didn't need to play there tracking us, but it's nice to help out with. A few more probe droids. Okay. Gotta give Darkseid that card back, of course. All right. And I would have liked to get C-3PO out sooner. That would have allowed the dark side to use C-3PO after they captured him. So this is taking a little bit longer than I wanted to. The same idea there, C-3PO finally. He's going to move over. A gift goes on him, which makes it an undercover spy. And he switches over. goes to the other side. So there's C3PO. Probably could have gone for C3PO this turn, but I went for K2SO instead. A few more probe droids are coming out. So we still need C3PO yet. He's the last one to steal. All right, so the dark side's going to get another card. Just helps to build their deck. More force to work with. Depending on how lucky you are as dark side, you can get Thunder Flare and Erica into your hand earlier and start doing the shenanigans beforehand. But Thunder Flare and Anakin really don't, until you get Erica out or Thunder Flare, there's really not much you can do. We got to get 5d6 over here because he's a spy, so he can go undercover himself eventually. I even sold Darkseid a tunnel vision just in case they need to check their force pile if they get that into hand. But with only a few cards in the deck, I think I had tracking down pretty well. And plus the back helps too to remind you of where cards are. So now here comes out a bunch of undercovers. And it's kind of funny because every time you deploy an undercover, the probe droid switches sides, at least in terms of appearance. So that is nice for when trying to look at things. You can send them all over to the other side, and you won't accidentally. I don't think you can deploy undercover on the same one. I guess I didn't try. I don't know why you couldn't. It wouldn't be cumulative or anything, but I don't know if there's any reason why you wouldn't be able to do it. What does undercover say? I don't know. I guess depending on how you read it, you could say, well, if they're now undercover, then you can't deploy it on them. If after you deploy them, they're now undercover, which implies they can't already be undercover. So maybe that's the reasoning there. You couldn't deploy it on more than one, or more than one on a droid, I should say. All these droids going undercover. Only a few more to go. At this point, I'm just double checking I got everything working right. Got to make sure I got all my droids out. Not entirely positive what's in my deck, but there's not that many droids left I could get out. So 5d6 moves over. And we got C3PO now to recycle cards we don't need. He's a dark side card now. C3PO and R2D2 might never turn to the dark side, but they did in this game. Well, actually, they got stolen. It was really their fault. Oh, yeah, I drew up a ton in Sabak to see what I got in the deck, so things are looking pretty good. Out comes R3PO. His text doesn't apply until the control phase. So his text, there's one on the table, but this one's easier to click on. So I mentioned at the beginning, opponent loses 1 force, 2 if the spy is a droid or is undercover, or 4 if the spy is both a droid and undercover. So for every undercover droid spy that the opponent owns, that's going to be 4 force, plus it's an extra 2 for Erica, because she is an undercover spy, not a droid though. And like I said, we can add a bunch of bobbins and get them stolen or get them lost to the dark side through Sabak, but that would take way, way too long. All right, so light side, and it looks like over here, 134 force loss. So that's a lot of undercover spies. 134 force loss. That's probably the most I've ever seen from a single action. And yeah, you could up it with bobbins, but yeah, so you could say that R3PO is effective at his job if his job is to root out Imperial spies, making them lose more than twice the equivalent of a deck. So it took a little while to set up. It's nice in the replay. It goes a lot faster. And yeah, that's the most I could think of losing to U3PO. The most I could figure out how to get it without using Bobbin spies, or maybe somehow turning over other undercover spies. I'm not sure how that would work, but yeah, 134. If you can think of a way to get more, I'd be very interested in hearing that in the comments. In any case, hope you enjoyed this kind of silly cooperative deck video, and thanks for watching.